Welcome on into the Wolverine TV. I am Clayton Safey with EJ Holland here. You can check us out at thewolverine.com. Use the promo code BLUE60 for 2 months of our premium content, absolutely free. We are presented by Lewis Jewelers and Manscaped. So thank you to our sponsors. EJ, let's break down the top 5 recruits you saw over the weekend at the Mecca, the Pylon 7-on-7 tournament in Las Vegas. Lots of Michigan recruits, lots of recruits in general, but obviously Michigan commit Will Johnson was the headliner. Let's start with him, the 5-star recruit right out of Michigan, but was out there out west. And I guess, how did he look? I know you've seen him quite a bit lately.
Yeah, it was interesting just because Will joined Domani Jackson's team for the weekend, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. But, it was a different scheme, a different concept for Will, joining a different team, going out and playing with some guys from California. He normally plays with Detroit Sound Mind, Sound Body team, Max X. So I think it took him a little getting used to. They ran a lot of press man, which, Will excels at. He overwhelmed guys with his length and his physicality. And everything that we talk about with Will, he put on display. I mean, he showed some really good patience. He only got beat once, and I teased Will about it. He was like, "Man, I didn't think they were going to throw it at me." And sometimes, I feel like that happens with Will, just because I mean, he'll go an entire game with no targets or one target, and
Like the game,
so
the game I saw him at a few, that was about a month ago now. The 7-on-7. I don't think he got targeted more than once or twice the whole time in 3 games. So
yeah, so Will got targeted that one time and allowed that one catch, and that was pretty much it. They didn't throw to him at all, so he actually ended up playing safety on the second day, and kind of just patrolled the back end and didn't let anything get behind him. But still, I mean, it was just really impressive. Sometimes, as a defensive back, the best games are the games where your name doesn't get called at all because you don't allow anything. And so it was just, he literally only allowed one catch on one target the entire tournament, which his team ended up playing 5 games. So it was another lockdown performance from Will Johnson. I mean, can't say enough great things about him, especially going out, taking more than a 4-hour flight from Detroit and getting to Las Vegas the same day he had to play. Didn't really experience any jet lag. He was his usual dominant self. So he was just great. One of the tournament's top overall performers.
that's tough. Jet lag can get to you, especially if you gotta do something as strenuous as play and cover guys all over the field in the 7-on-7 game. Another guy that was doing that, although he didn't have as far to travel, Domani Jackson, the 5-star former Michigan target, still kind of a Michigan target, but a USC commit, number 2 player in the country. Obviously, this is an elite talent, just like Will Johnson, who is pictured with him there. Your thoughts on him? Because Michigan obviously was always going to continue to push for him, so he's a guy that you certainly had your eye on and were able to talk to over the weekend as well. You had a huge insider thing over at thewolverine.com, promo code BLUE60 for those that are not already with us subscribed. But your thoughts on how Domani Jackson fared out there?
Yeah, we'll talk more about Domani and his recruitment in our recruiting show. But here, just want to break down his game. Obviously, Michigan is continuing to target him despite his commitment to USC. It wouldn't be surprising if Michigan gets him on campus for a visit. As far as his game, I thought him and Will really complemented each other well. Will and Domani have competed against each other a couple of times in 7-on-7, but this was their first time actually getting to play with each other, and they meshed well. Like I said, Will's that typical long physical outside corner. Domani provides a little more flexibility and versatility. He's not as tall or long as Will, but he does have a good build. He has an extremely muscular build. I was hanging out with 2023 quarterback Dante Moore, who wasn't participating in the tournament, but actually vacationing in Las Vegas. But he came out and he was doing some side analysis with me, and he was like, "Man, Domani is built like an action figure." And I was like, "Yeah, he kind of is built like an action figure." So he has a really nice build both in his upper and lower halves. He does have good length. He does have decent height as well. He's pushing 6 feet. But the thing that stands out about Domani is his speed. Really just brings a lot of that to the corner position, which, Michigan normally recruits guys that are those taller, longer corners. Domani would bring a lot of speed at the position. He also provides the flexibility to play safety. When I first evaluated Domani in pads in game, he started at safety and was a ball hawk back there. His closing speed and willingness to be physical definitely stands out. And so in 7-on-7, he did do a little bit of everything. He mostly played outside corner, but he did, line up in different spots, including the nickel. So I think they do complement each other well. And Domani's obviously an elite talent in his own right, and they both showed off their athleticism. Actually, Domani and Will played both ways most of the game. At wide receiver, Domani made a ton of plays, even coming out of the backfield at times. Will made some plays as a pure outside receiver. So they're just, top level athletes, guys that are a notch above the competition, even in major tournaments like Pylon Las Vegas.
Yeah, and definitely a reason why Michigan's still pushing for him. And we'll, like you said and alluded to, we will talk about him later on in the week when we get together for our recruiting show that will wrap up the week. Let's talk about Kody Jones, who is the next on this list. Another Michigan commit, 4-star. Before we do, though, I want to remind everybody that support for this show is brought to you by Manscaped, which is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide, including us. They sent us a nice care package. We have an exclusive offer for our listeners, 20% off plus free shipping with the code 20GOBLUE at manscaped.com. That's 20GOBLUE at manscaped.com. EJ, how are you enjoying your care package so far?
Yeah, it was great. They sent me a nice little travel bag with all types of Manscaped goodies, and it kept me clean throughout the Las Vegas tournament, which was full of dirt and heat, a lot of sand blowing. We had 30-mile-per-hour gusts out there. So, it keeps you right, especially when you have a wife to come home to.
There you
Great.
go. Couldn't have said it better myself as somebody who doesn't have a wife to come home to. But yeah, definitely glad that it worked out for you over the weekend. Manscaped.com. Use the promo code 20GOBLUE. Let's talk about Kody Jones, as I mentioned, who is going to be pictured right there with Domani Jackson and Will Johnson. So we keep adding one to these pictures here. He is, a kid out of Tennessee, was also traveling quite a far ways, obviously locked in with Michigan, as you can see pictured there, probably helping out a little bit with Domani Jackson. But what did you see from Kody on the field? I think a lot of people know more about Will. They probably even know quite a bit about Domani just since he's so high profile. But Kody Jones is a guy who's locked in with Michigan as well, and that I think a lot of people are kind of curious to learn more about.
Yeah, I think Kody is just really solid in all areas. There isn't any one thing that Kody does that's spectacular, but there aren't a ton of faults to his game either. I thought Kody, again, just had a really solid tournament. He played a lot of outside corner and didn't see a ton of targets come his way. He did allow a few completions later in the tournament. Again, it's, when the competition obviously got tougher, his team made a pretty decent run. And those are things that are really easily correctable, like knowing what the offense is going to do. He was giving up the inside when it was clear they weren't throwing many. The opposing team wasn't going to throw fades to these quicker wide receivers, so he gave up a couple of slants. So just, knowing what the offense is going to do, being a little more patient, trusting his technique. The thing with Will is, I keep harping on this, but he is so patient because he trusts his technique. Kody doesn't have, bad technique. There's some room for improvement there as well, as he's still a little more raw than Domani and Will, but he has really good technique. He just has to kind of trust himself on that. He does make plays on the ball. He had a game-winning pass breakup in pool play. He also had an interception. So again, he just had a really solid tournament. It's hard to find faults in his game other than minor little things that can again be easily correctable. He's a guy that provides flexibility. Like Will, he mostly played outside corner, but he was involved at safety as well. Especially when they were looking, his team was looking for a play on the back end if it was a big game and they wanted to maybe come away with a turnover. They stuck Kody out at safety. Like I said, he had a game-winning pass breakup. He was playing safety at an interception. He was playing safety. So Michigan recruited him more as a nickel guy, and that's kind of where I see him. I mean, he's not overly long or tall. He's at about 5'11". He's built really well, though. He won't need to add a ton of weight. But I think with Kody, you're just getting a guy that could be, a 2-year starter and just a guy that just makes plays in the secondary and a consistent option that you can rely on.
Definitely. And I know people are excited. Like when he committed, I know Taylor Groves committed at the same time, and he's obviously no longer in the class, but people were super excited. And I think he kind of gets forgotten about because you think of Will Johnson, then you think of, the next crop of, secondary guys they're going after, but you might forget more about Kody Jones, who's going to be a solid player, obviously down the road for Michigan. Let's talk about the next guy on this list. The fourth guy is Leona Luau, outside linebacker, 6'1", 200 pounds in the class of 2023 out of Hawaii. Kahuku, Hawaii. Is that right? First of all, give me clarification on that. Second of all, tell me what you saw out of him. Obviously, a younger guy coming in and obviously caught your eye.
Yeah, I think you pronounced it right. But yeah, Leona is really impressive prospect, man. Michigan fans might not know a ton about him. Michigan actually offered last month. Sean Nua has strong Polynesian ties and decided to dip into Hawaii and extend an offer. But Michigan linebackers coach George Hilo is also involved here. This wasn't just an offer to throw out an offer to see if we can get some Polynesians on campus or something like that. Leona is a legit talent. I think that's kind of backed up by Hilo starting to make him an early priority. And he had a great tournament. He led his team to the championship, was named the overall MVP of the tournament. He only has 5 offers right now, so I think it was a really, really good eval by Nua and Hilo. He's really athletic for an inside backer. He made so many plays on the ball. Normally in 7-on-7, linebacker can kind of be a weak point that opposing teams kind of target. With Leona, other teams couldn't get the ball to their backs or to their slots because he was so impressive in coverage. And like I mentioned during our Manscaped talk, there were 30-mile-per-hour gusts on the second day. So a lot of teams were trying to check down or throw quick slants or little bubbles and things like that. And Leona was able to really shut things down. I believe his team only allowed 12 points in all of pool play and something like ridiculously low, like 14 points during championship play. So he's just kind of the total package as an inside linebacker. He also lined up at receiver and was one of his team's biggest offensive weapons. So just an athletic headhunter. Sean Nua actually told him, man, you are a headbanger, and that's what we need at Michigan. And so I think Leona is definitely a guy to get familiar with for the 2023 class.
Definitely going to be an intriguing guy to watch going forward. On the offensive side of the ball now, the last guy on this list, Malik Agbo, 4-star offensive tackle out of Washington, 6'6", 320, a mammoth offensive tackle. Your thoughts on him, a 4-star prospect there up out of Washington?
Yeah, Malik Agbo is a guy that was really impressive, man. Even though he's an offensive lineman, he's a prospect that was playing some jumbo tight end. So they actually called it the Big Bird package, and they would throw him in near the goal line, and he was a big target that obviously opposing defenses weren't ready for. So yeah, he went with his team and spent most of the time snapping, but. When he lined up in that Big Bird package, he scored like 4 times. So he's definitely an athletic guy for how big he is. And I mean, he is massive. He looks like an interior offensive lineman as opposed to like an athletic offensive tackle. So I think he's going to be a guard at the next level. But man, if your guard can go out there and score 4 touchdowns and 7-on-7, you have a pretty athletic guard. Agbo's definitely a guy that Sharon Moore is making a top priority. For this cycle. He has official visits scheduled to Miami, LSU, and Oklahoma, but he told me Michigan is in the running for one of those last two. So definitely a prospect that fans should be familiar with. And I would, encourage you to go watch some of those 7-on-7 clips because he was just entertaining. I mean, every time Agbo put the little helmet, those whatever 7-on-7 plush helmets, every time he put it on, everybody was like, "Oh, goes in, let's go watch," because it was just so entertaining. And I mean, again, he scored quite a few times. He was kind of unstoppable. He was a bully out there.
I love it. I love it. It's fair to say he's a unit.
He is a unit.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, that is awesome. Good for him going out there and showing out, scoring touchdowns. Big man touchdowns are the best. So yeah, that is great to hear on him. Those are the top 5 recruits that EJ saw over the weekend at the Mecca in Las Vegas, the 7-on-7 tournament. Stay tuned later on in the week for some more videos on some recruiting intel coming out of that trip. And use the promo code BLUE60 at thewolverine.com for full coverage. We'll see you next time.